Causes and results of persecution. My sources are the OG history teacher, Dan Ketter, and Earl Cairns. I haven't actually read his book, but Dan Ketter took some of his notes from him, so I'll include him as a source. There's two conflicts in the church. Back in this time, right, the early church, but also really today. You have the internal conflict, which is dealing with different beliefs and practices in the church, heresy, not heresy. And then you have the external from the world, right, persecuting the church. We've been talking in this chapter 2 about persecution. The causes. This is specifically the causes for persecution under the Roman Empire. Later we'll talk about some of what happens to the church outside of the Roman Empire. The book, your textbook, is almost completely focuses on the Western church. So the church that becomes the Roman Catholic Church and then the Protestant churches. But we will talk a lot about the other church. I shouldn't say the other church, the other part of the church, the other wing of the church, okay? The one that's outside of the Roman Empire and doesn't get as much fame or study, but it's just as real. So here's the causes. Political. Jesus is Lord, not Caesar, not the emperor. So the emperors obviously didn't like that. The meetings, because it seems like these Christians are always meeting, right? They're always getting together, having food, eating stuff, singing, worshiping, studying scripture. Man, that seems a little sneaky. Now, this is kind of a vicious cycle because, right, they meet, but they have to meet in secret because they're not supposed to meet. So then the fact that they're meeting in secret makes it seem even more sinister or conspiratorial, right? What are these Christians planning at these meetings? And then there's the religious, right? The Romans looked at the Christians as atheists because they didn't have idols. They didn't worship the gods. Normally, a good Roman would just keep adding, oh, you worship this god? Okay, we'll add him to our group. But the Christians said, nope, none of those are real. This is the only true God. And then the secret meetings, of course, they're secret meetings. It seems kind of creepy. What are they doing? Are they practicing cannibalism? Orgies? Other creepy, evil stuff? And then tied into that is, of course, the fact that you're not doing what the rest of us are doing. You're social weirdos, goofs, awkward turtles. You don't know. You're not like us. So we don't like you. And then, of course, the fact that they practiced a lot of equality, right? Man, the Christians were treating women really nice. They were elevating women, children, slaves, barbarians, the horror. The hierarchy must be maintained, right? It's going to be social anarchy if all these people get rights and privileges. And lastly, the economic one. The fact that more and more people were becoming Christians means that they were not participating in some of the stuff, the pagan religious industries, like buying idols or buying stuff that was sacrificed to idols or giving money to the local priests, right, of these foreign religions, these pagan religions, my bad. Remember in Acts chapter 19, the Ephesians start a riot led by the silver workers because the silver workers were losing money from selling their idols. Or the magic people, right, were losing money because people weren't buying their magic books. That's upsetting. So they were persecuted. But as bad as persecution under Rome was, and it was bad, right? We learned that in the last few videos, the reading of Perpetua. Here we have to realize, okay, it was only sporadic. In other words, it's worse at some times, and maybe it's even non existent for the most part in other times, depending on who was emperor, who was governor in a particular province. Because besides the fact that it was only sporadic, it came and went, it's also true that it was often localized. In other words, it might only be one city or one region of the empire at any given time. In the rest of the place, it might be fine, depending on if the governor or the general or whoever was over this particular area, how he felt about Christians or how the general populace felt about Christians. The results are it spread. Christianity was not held back by this. It continued to spread. More people became Christians. There's some good quotes from the early church. You might have heard of them before. There's Tertullian, a North African, the bishop of Carthage, I believe. And I think he was a lawyer before he became bishop. Said that the blood of the martyrs is seed. Maybe you've heard it said, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. In other words, the more people that are killed, the witness of these martyrs, which is what, by the way, a martyr means, a witness, the witness of these guys and gals is that what? The church grows. People see that and go, wow, there's something here. And then also an epistle to Diognetus. We don't know who wrote this, but we know that it was written to a guy named Diognetus. The author of this epistle says, do you not see that the more of them, Christians, that are punished, the greater becomes the number of the rest? The witness of the people who suffer and die is such that it encourages other people to do the same, to check it out. And it also causes an internal problem, okay? During these persecutions, for instance, when the Roman emperor says, hey, you have to burn incense to me, or you have to burn incense to Jupiter, and the Christians refuse, okay, they get killed. But what happens if a Christian says, okay, sure, it's just a little incense, it doesn't mean anything, I don't want to die? And so they burn that incense. Or the Christians are told by the Romans, hey, give up the Bible, give up your scriptures so we can burn them. And they do. Or they renounce Christ publicly. What happens to these Christians? What do you do after persecution is ended and the Christians want to come back in? Or they want to say, hey, you know, I did that under duress, but I didn't really mean it. Or I'm sorry. What do you do? This is going to create several problems. We'll get into more of that later. All right.